Hello, welcome to the Reading Corner. Today I'm going to read chapter 4 of Who Was Thomas Jefferson? Chapter 4, Governor and Minister to France. Most members of the Congress signed the Declaration on August 2nd, 1776. Its author signed this, but there's no pictures, so I'm not going to show you any pictures. Its author signed the paper, T.H. Jefferson. After signing, he was ready to go home. He missed his family. Besides, he felt he was needed in Virginia. He quit his seat in Congress on September 2nd and reached Monticello a week later. In October, Jefferson became a member of Virginia's new state legislature. He served there for 3 difficult years. England was the world's most powerful nation. For a long while, it appeared that the United States would lose the war. Jefferson ran for governor of Virginia in June 1779. He was elected and held the office for 2 years. Jefferson was a brilliant thinker. He was a marvelous writer, but he was not good at wartime governor. Perhaps the biggest problem was that in his heart, he was a man of peace. He was not good at raising and arming men for combat. As a result, Virginia was unprepared when the British invaded the state in 1781. On June 2nd, 1781, with British forces overrunning Virginia, Jefferson's term as a governor ended. 2 days later, Jefferson was at Monticello when a messenger arrived with terrible news. The British were coming to capture him. Thomas made Martha and the children board a carriage and escaped. He then walked into the woods to see if he could spot the enemy. Seeing no sign of them, he decided to return home for some paper. This is him going back to Monticello, and this is him telling his children and all to escape. Before doing that, he took out a small telescope he had brought along. He aimed it at Charlottesville, just 2 miles from Monticello. The town was crawling with British troops. The telescope may have saved his life. The British had seized Monticello. Had he returned home, Jefferson might have been captured and hanged. Instead, he met up with his family. This is him on the telescope, and you can read it for 1 second. Okay. Jefferson took them to Poplar Forest, a plantation he owned about 80 miles from Monticello. A few months after the Jeffersons fled Monticello, the Americans won a stunning victory. It occurred right in Virginia. Ben Franklin had convinced France to help America fight Britain. In October 1781, George Washington's troops, along with the French soldiers, crushed the Briton at Yorktown, Virginia. This victory meant that America had won its war for independence. No one was happier about the independence than Thomas Jefferson. This should have been a happy time for Thomas Jefferson. However, some Virginians accused him of not having done enough earlier as governor to protect the state. Virginia's legislature even held hearings on the subject. Jefferson was cleared of wrongdoing in late 1781. Still, the harsh words from the people of his own state hurt him deeply. To make things worse, while riding on a horseback ride, Thomas broke his left rib and suffered for other injuries. He couldn't leave the house for 6 weeks. It's so bad. This is America and France winning. This is also George Washington leading the troops and all. This is, I think, wait, let me see. Yeah, this is USA and British, and this is him breaking his left wrist. In the following year came the worst blow of all. By early 1782, the Jeffersons were back at Monte Carlo. There on May 8th, Martha gave birth to her sixth and last child, Lucy Elizabeth. Martha grew weaker day by day following the birth. For 4 months, Tom stayed by her bedside and read to her from their favorite books. At night, he slept in a nearby room in her final hours. Martha told Thomas her last wish. She had 3 living children, Patsy, Maria, and the baby, Lucy Elizabeth. She couldn't bear for them to be raised by a stepmother. Promise never remarry, she begged her husband. Thomas promised. A short time later, on September 6th, 1782, Martha died. That's very sad. Thomas's oldest sister, Patsy, was 9 at the time. Many years later, she wrote that her father nearly lost his mind from a grief. He would not leave his room for 3 weeks. This is when he's reading beside his wife and staying in his room for 3 weeks. When he finally came out, he went on long horseback rides through the woods. The violence of his emotion, of his grief, she wrote half a century later. To this day, I dare not trust myself to describe. Friends such as James Madison thought that Thomas should return to politics. That might take his mind off the grief. Jefferson agreed. In June 1783, Jefferson was elected to the Continental Congress. Over the next 6 months, he served on nearly every major committee in Congress. He also wrote at least 31 government papers. In the spring of 1784, Congress gave him an important job. He was to go to France and help make treaties with European countries. Jefferson left his 2 younger daughters with relatives, but 11-year-old Patsy made the 3,800-mile voyage with her father. They reached Paris on August 6th. Once he was in France, Jefferson's job changed. Ben Franklin resigned as U.S. Minister to France. Jefferson, who had learned some French, was then named to the post. He was to make sure that the United States and France remained friends. He kept in touch with French officials and traveled around the country. Back home, though things were going poorly, in October 1784, 2-year-old Lucy Elizabeth died of whooping cough. It's very sad, very, very sad. News traveled so slowly by the ship that Jefferson didn't find out about it for about 3 months. So this is the ship he went in, I think. And this is how long the 3,800-mile trip it was. The grieving father wanted his only other child, Maria, to join Patsy and himself in France. 8-year-old Maria was too young to travel alone. Jefferson wrote home asking one of his slaves to sail with her. A slave named Sally Hemings was only 14 years old, was sent with Maria. The two girls arrived in France in mid-1787. Maria entered the school that Patsy attended. Sally went to work as a house slave in Jefferson's Paris apartment. Sally Hemings was not only a slave. She was closely related to Jefferson's late wife, Martha. Martha Jefferson's parents were John and Martha Wales. Martha's father also had 6 children with one of his slave women. These children were considered black and were raised as slaves. Sally was one of them because they had the same father. Martha and Sally were half-sisters. After John Wales' death in 1773, Sally had become Martha and Thomas Jefferson's slave at Monticello. Sally Hemings probably looked like her half-sister. She may have reminded Thomas of Martha in other ways. Jefferson began a relationship with Sally. She had little of any choice in the matter. Because Jefferson was her master, Sally had to do what he wanted. This was just one of the many evil things about slavery. Yet over time, it appears that Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson grew very fond of each other. They would maintain their relationship for nearly 40 years. This is a picture of Sally Hemings. I think she looks like it looks like she doesn't need to be a slave. Seriously, it looks like that. 2, 3 more pages left. In 1789, Sally Hemings became pregnant. Thomas Jefferson was the father. By then, Jefferson had been overseas for 5 years. He wanted to go home. Congress said he could, but Jefferson had one problem. Under French law, Sally could become free by staying in France. She agreed to return to the U.S. only if Jefferson made her a promise. Their children had to be freed once they reached adulthood. Sally may have also asked for her own freedom one day as well. Jefferson agreed. In the fall of 1789, he sailed for home with Sally Hemings and his 2 daughters. They barely made it. Off Virginia's coast, a storm lashed their ship, ripping away some of the sails. Then another vessel nearly rammed into them. Their ship also caught fire, but fortunately, they just after they landed. Wow, their ship caught fire just after they landed? That's so fortunate. Guess right? Okay, continuously. The travelers reached Monticello 2 days before Christmas of 1789. Sally's baby was born soon after, but the child seemed to live only for a short time. Jefferson's relationship with Sally continued at Monticello. Over the next 19 years, they had 6 more children. 2 died in infancy. Their sons Beverly, Madison, and Edson, and their daughter Harriet, lived to adulthood. Like their mother, these 4 children were slaves at Monticello. And actually, This is the storm there. And this is Harriet and Beverly and Eston and the other guy, Madison. Many years later, Madison Hemmings complained that Thomas Jefferson hadn't showed his slave family any fatherly affection. However, in one way, Jefferson did favor Sally and their children. He saw it that they had easier jobs than the field slaves. Sally and Harriet did housework and sewing at Monticello. The boys ran errands and worked at carpentry. Eventually, Sally and her other children were given freedom, but not for many years to come. And that's it for today. I'm going to make another video right now, but bye for right now.